Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if things like psychic abilities or influencing objects with your mind are real? Well, this fascinating new study dives deep into that very question using a method designed to make research more honest and reliable. Today we're talking about a study that looked at research on what we call extrasensory perception or ESP and mind-matter interaction. Things like influencing small objects with your thoughts. But here is the really interesting part. They focus on studies that were pre-registered. So what does pre-registration mean? Well, imagine you are about to do an experiment. You write down exactly what you are going to test, exactly how you are going to test it, and exactly how you'll decide if your results are good or not before you even look at the data. This is super important because it helps stop researchers from doing something called hacking, which is kind of like rolling the dice over and over until you get a lucky number or making up a reason for your results after you see them, which is called harking. The scientists here wanted to see how many of these special pre-registered studies on ESP and mind-matter interaction actually found something positive. They also wanted to compare this to how often studies in regular mainstream psychology that are also pre-registered find positive results. So how did they do it? They searched major places where researchers register their studies, like the Open Science Framework, and a special registry for parapsychology research. They were only interested in studies that were fully completed and had both their registration and their final results available. And importantly, they only looked at studies that were testing specific planned-out hypotheses, not just exploring random ideas. They looked at a total of 46 studies that fit their criteria. And guess what? 17 of those studies, a little over 36%, reported a positive outcome. This means that for at least one planned-out hypothesis, the results supported it, and this was done strictly according to the original plan. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. A lot of people might expect that in these more controversial areas like ESP, you'd see very few positive results, especially when you use methods like pre-registration that are supposed to make research more rigorous and reduce the chances of finding fluke results. But that is not what they found. In fact, when they compared their findings to other pre-registered studies in mainstream psychology, the rate of positive outcomes was pretty similar. This is a big deal because it suggests that researchers studying ESP and mind-matter interaction who follow strict pre-registration rules aren't necessarily seeing their positive findings disappear. It implies that the effects they might be seeing aren't just due to sloppy research practices. They also looked at the types of tasks people were doing. Precognition, the ability to know something before it happens, was the most studied area. Most participants were in a normal waking state, not some special altered state of consciousness. And for the most part, the studies used a forced choice format where participants had to pick from a set of options. Interestingly, they also found that using selected participants, people who believe they have some psychic ability or practice mindfulness, didn't necessarily lead to better results than using unselected participants, just the general public. Looking back at the results from mainstream psychology studies with pre-registration, like the Open Science Collaboration and other big reviews, we see numbers that are actually in a similar ballpark. For example, one study showed around 36% positive results, and another showed around 44% positive results for pre-registered psychology studies. So what does this all mean? This study is really important because it uses pre-registration, a major tool for improving scientific honesty, to look at ESP and mind-matter interaction. And it found that even with these stricter rules about how research is planned and conducted, the results don't just vanish. This suggests that there might be something real going on, that these practices are picking up. The authors point out something crucial though. When studies don't find a statistically significant result, it doesn't automatically mean the phenomenon isn't real. It just means that particular study didn't find enough evidence to reject the idea that the results were due to chance. They emphasize that often the effects being studied are very small. They even give an example. If you are looking for a tiny effect size and you want to be pretty sure you'll find it, if it is there, you need a lot of participants or a lot of trials. They suggest that many studies in ESP might need many more trials than they currently do to have enough power to detect these subtle effects. So while this study is really encouraging for people interested in ESP and mind-matter interaction, it also highlights the challenges. The effects might be subtle and require really large, well-designed studies to be consistently detected. Pre-registration helps ensure that the research is done honestly, but it doesn't magically create bigger effects. In my opinion, this study is a fantastic step forward. It shows that when researchers in these controversial fields adopt the best practices of mainstream science, they get results that are at least as robust. It challenges the easy dismissal of ESP research and opens the door for more rigorous investigation. The fact that they found a similar rate of positive findings compared to mainstream psychology pre-registered studies is pretty compelling. It makes you wonder what else we might discover if we keep applying these transparent methods to even more research questions in these areas. What do you think about these findings? Have you ever felt like you had a hunch that turned out to be right? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more explorations into the fascinating world of psychology.